What experience of yours was a 0/10? Wouldn't recommend. Getting bar soap in the tip of your D and peeing after. Attending a high school reunion. The duck did I do that for? Scratching my testicles. Accidentally. Of course, after handling habanero peppers. 200/10. Pouring Fanta into a glass. Not knowing there was a slug in the glass. Drinking Fanta, a slug slowly dissolves, wondering why it tastes increasingly odd. Do not recommend. Getting sober. Well, more like becoming an alcoholic in the first place. When I decided to get sober, it was one of the most painful things I've ever done. Night sweats, the shakes, irritability, and everything hurts. Last year my tooth completely split in half vertically, all the way down to the root. It was the most painful experience of my life. I've gotten pneumonia 3 times in my life and that wasn't nearly as painful. Ended up having to go to an emergency dentist to have it pulled. 0/10 would never, ever recommend. Foot under a running lawnmower. I got lucky and only lost a ½ inch of my big toe, but I was still walking funny for 2 years after. Because people have asked, I was standing at the top of a ditch with a push mower. Intention was to push it down one side, then back up the other, but I slipped and got my foot underneath the mower when it was at the bottom. Going on holiday with your so-and-in-laws. Most of my 10-question high school quizzes. Was surprised nobody posted this before, so here it goes. Art's mom. Divorce, especially when kids are involved. Talk to your partners about the difficult stuff. People, and don't cheat on them. Don't piss in a 5mm wetsuit. No, the piss won't wash away or drain out, it'll stay in your wetsuit, and when you take it off after your dive you'll smell like piss. Getting a chest tube put in to drain air from your chest cavity. They give you local anesthetic for the incision, but that doesn't help with the 12 inches metal rod that's as thick as a Sharpie they shove into your chest and wave around like Ron trying to fake his way through charms class. Letting your off-again boyfriend move in with you. In a new town, where he had no job and knew nobody, he will become your on-again boyfriend, become depressed and feel emasculated, and may become controlling as a result of this. You will stay in the relationship longer than you should, and it will be difficult to get out of. New Year's Eve at Times Square. Doing business and financial transactions with family and friends. Picking up the wrong gas nozzle and putting unleaded in a diesel car. Oh dear. Expired lube. It basically breaks down into paint thinner. Always check the date on your lube. Getting gout in my 20s. Not only does it hurt like a itch and hinders my ability to walk, but nobody seems to understand what gout is. Even doctors sometimes, and others assume I don't actually have it because I was too young to get gout. Stayed in my first relationship for nearly a year too long because it's your first love, and you only really fall in love once, and relationships are work, and he's so in love with you. You can tell by how clingy he is and how he's completely invented a version of you that doesn't exist to put on a pedestal and worship. If your gut tells you it's over, and it tells you that repeatedly for weeks, months even, then do yourself a favor and end it. Lol. 2nd degree burns on my foot leg. I stood downhill from a fire that was being lit with gasoline and unknowingly was standing in a cloud of gas fumes that were too close to the ground when it lit. For weeks after every step I took on my burned foot without crutches cracked open the new skin and the pain was unbearable for a few minutes. Terrible experience because it wasn't like being injured and then started the recovery process. It was like a new injury with every step. 0/10. Giving your heart to Jesus. Being cheated on twice in a week. Being in an abusive relationship. Getting an ingrown toenail. Getting an ingrown toenail. Surgery. Definitely that time I got stabbed 6 times at the base of the Curia of Pompey. A 5-hour inner tube ride down a slow river with a bunch of drunk people while you're sober. Buying some nice looking pies and completely missing the fact they had blue Stilton baked with a beef filling. I honestly thought I was eating rot by the second bite. Turns out I was. I had a brutal benzo withdrawal that ended in psychosis. Worst thing I've ever been through. Repressing stress. 0/10. Now I have a cold all the ducking time and my inner ear has clocked out. Don't do it. Alcoholism. It's all fun and games until your loved one can't trust you anymore. Be responsible. Kids, addiction is a methodica. Accidentally put diesel fuel in a bus. Had to siphon it out by sucking on a plastic tube. I know the taste of failure and no amount of Coors Light will wash it away. Getting shanked by a 24-pound catfish while trying to take it out of a 55-gallon barrel in a small metal boat. Spikes might as well be knives and they go straight through skin and muscle. Laser teeth whitening. Especially doing all the treatments at one time. Teeth were slightly whiter for like one day, but the next 4 days it felt like my teeth were falling out. Like getting your braces tightened x200. Not worth it. Needing to take a leak right before you fall asleep. Telling yourself you'll wait till the morning. And taking some sort of muscle relaxant. When you start to wet the bed. Just don't assume you're lucid dreaming and think everything's gonna be okay when you wake up. My adventure with Comcast cable. Staph infected wound. 10/10 if you don't treat it for ages. The new Power Rangers movie. Rubbing my eyes with chili on my hands. Getting shingles in your 20s. Doctor didn't believe me until I showed him. Then went, holy it, you have shingles. I know. I told you. I got my first infected ingrown toenail as a preteen. On top of that, one of the extracurriculars my parents had me in was ballet. And this was right around when they were trying to transition us to point. There's about a 6-month period of my life there that I'll put as a solid 20/10 there. Deep sea fishing on a rainy day. Big boat with a bunch of people. Took anti-nausea medication. Boat rocked ridiculously hard. I remember trying to sleep through it and each time I woke up, less and less folk were inside the dry cabin because they had to puke overboard. Eventually the rain died down but I had no interest in fishing at that point as there was vomit, fish, and squid gut puree everywhere. Having explosive diarrhea constipation. I don't know how it happened but it felt like my ass was wide open and closed tight at the same time. If I had to describe it I'd say it's like if someone opened the door in an airplane mid-flight but all the passengers are tied securely with seat belts. Some of the luggage can go flying out from the overhead baggage because it's not tied down but the plane is still full. Eating food at a Greyhound bus station. Pack your own food, people. Eating potato chips just 3 days after getting my wisdom teeth removed and getting a jagged, sharp piece of a chip stuck in one of the sockets. Tramadol withdrawals. Was addicted for 3 years. Cold turkey was awful. The auditory hallucinations and intense stomach pain were something I wouldn't wish on anyone. Epilepsy. Seizures really suck for a variety of reasons. And it means you can't drive. And neurologists have very limited options of what to do about it because they have little to no idea what's happening. Fortunately most people grow out of it. Stuck in traffic. Had to pee. Ran up to my apartment when I got home and just brought it out over the waistband. It was putting pressure on me so there wasn't any coming out. Grabbed the drawstring on my shorts and pinched my sack in a knot. Wouldn't recommend. Having a burst appendix. I went to the emergency room twice and they told me I was constipated and gave me some strong laxatives. Next time I experienced pain, I looked it up on WebMD, then went to a different emergency room where they told me I had to have surgery right now. Pretty damn painful. I lived with that for a month. 0/10 would not recommend, but 10/10 would recommend WebMD. Who knew? Viewing my granddad after he died. I wasn't there when he died and felt really upset and guilty. I thought maybe going to see him before the funeral might help. Walked in the room and as soon as I laid eyes on him immediately regretted it. He didn't look like him. And I know that's a stupid thing to say because he was dead but being embalmed I guess. It made him look really strange. His mouth was all stretched wide across his face like the Joker and it just looked wrong and horrible. I was so upset that that's my last memory of him. I won't ever go to see a relative after death again. I know some people get closure from it, but maybe I wasn't fully prepared for how people actually look after embalming, and it was a huge shock to the system. Marrying someone with children. Attending university with undiagnosed ADHD. Having your kneecaps spontaneously slide down onto your shins within the same night of each other. Root canal on either of your 2 front teeth. You need one if you break it, and it's the worst tooth to get worked on. It's not an easy area to make numb, and the Novocaine shot is so high up it makes your eyes water. I worked in a clerical department during the time when people were copycatting the mail anthrax letters. We had a mail room whose job it was to open the mail, and they opened thousands of letters a day. And I know it wasn't intentional, I'd seen them operate the letter opening machine, some just slipped through, but it was always the ones with the powder. Then you're stuck waiting for the hazmat team. They draw blood. Like the first 2 times this happened, you gotta fill out a ton of paperwork. The entire area gets wiped off and cleaned, which means your desk is now out of order and has to be reorganized. And then there is the waiting for the results. You know it's likely nothing, but there is that nagging suspicion. But 0/10 opening an envelope and having white powder fly everywhere, never again.